Hello and welcome to another Logic Gate tutorial. Before I go any further, if you saw my last couple of videos about the laser trip mines and my race, which is over there, and if you haven't seen them, the link will be in the description. I just want to add an addendum to that, something that I was aware of but I'd forgotten, and that's, you can see I've just put a tripwire here, and I've also put a PC in between it. So I've got a generator going up to a conduit, going up to a PC, going up to a tripwire. If you put the PC in the circuit of the tripwire, you can access additional features. Not too much here, but what you've got here is quite interesting. Here's how you can set the trigger target to whether or not you want it to be anything or hostiles. Anything would be friendlies or hostiles, or just hostiles. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like you can just say I only want friendlies. So trigger on anything would also trigger on friendlies, you know, if you see what I mean. It's a shame there isn't a trigger on hostiles, trigger on friendlies toggle, because both of these will trigger on hostiles. So that's a bit of a shame, but never mind. And the other thing is there's an arm all and disarm all. So I can turn it on and off through a PC. So in the case of where I had my switch at the top of this race, I could have put a PC up there and not had to jump down and rearm my tripwires. I could have rearmed them, which are over here. I could, like, as you can see, they're not armed. I put a PC in the mix and arm them that way, which would make it a lot easier to have several races one after the other. So with that said, we will cut to the next part of the tutorials, yeah, I just wanted to add that. So thanks for watching. Let's zip on, whatever that means. Hello and welcome to another Logic Gates video. My goal here is to play a tune, and what started out as something that I thought was very simple is turning out to be much more complicated than I thought. I'm still going to do it, but the interesting thing is I have a set of logic here. I'll go into that in later, and a bunch of vibrato pulse speakers here. And if I put them up in sequence and go into my computer to set their individual tones, no matter what I do, it makes them all the same. So even though I might be getting somewhere with this, and you're sort of seeing a peek behind the curtain here because I haven't finished this. If you see this, then I get it right and I do it right and it works. But I don't know if I can do what I want to do, and I'll get to that later in a bit. But yeah, so what I've had to do is put a generator here. Even though I have a power up there, I put a generator with a separate computer, and I'm having to hook the wire up to an individual pulse speaker that's not connected to anything else, tell it what the tone that I want is. In this case it's C. Let me get rid of that. So I hook that up to that computer, and you can hear it's going off now, just like an old stylophone, and I tell it what tone I want. It's the only thing connected to that particular setup, so we'll go to C4, and it'll just go down a couple of, there we go. Right, then I remove the wire, which will obviously turn it off because it's not getting power now, and then I start matching it up. I have to sort of like tell it outside of this circuit. So there's a little tip there if you're trying to recreate what I'm doing here, is you have to tell the pulse vibrato what tone you want using a separate circuit. If I was to plug this computer as I originally had it in this circuit, it just makes them all the same. It doesn't say speaker control 1, speaker control 2. It just says speaker control and makes them all the same. But it is possible to make them different, and I'm setting up a whole bunch of delayed logic here to play a tune, a very short tune, and that was my goal here. So anyway, we'll cut in a minute, and we'll come to the video where hopefully it's all complete, and I'll speak to you in a bit. Okay, I think I'm done. That took much longer than it should have done for a variety of reasons, not least of which is the wiring in Fallout, when it gets complicated, starts to get a bit buggy. I have a generator and a computer, and that's it in the circuit, and I was using that to alter various things, and I had it hooked up to just a speaker here on its own, just in the middle, and for some reason it was controlling turrets and everything else that I've got in the entire settlement. So when I was changing things, it was undoing all the changes that I made along here, because it was master changing everything. Even though the wiring was generator, computer to speaker, I took them apart, stored them in the old workbench, and rebuilt them, and that fixed the problem. But I didn't know that was the problem for quite some time, and I was wondering why it wasn't working. Okay, but it is now, and I have exclusive OR logic gates. Keep this nice and simple, and what that means is it'll play a tune, do it all the way along, just a little ditty. I think you'll recognize it. And the reason I use logic gates here is because obviously I have delayed switches here, and they will turn power on or off. And the problem with that is going to be after the first one's played and the delayed switch turns off, it won't activate the next one because the next one won't have power. So you have to kind of like have a parallel power going across the top, which is what these exclusive ORs are doing. So they have one set of power from this master pylon, and then as these go on and off, they trigger the next one. Domino effect. And then finally I've got an on and off here because I wanted the last note to be a little longer, and it also punctuates puts kind of period at the end of this particular setup. So without further ado, it's very simple. Bit of a delay there, but that's okay. I don't care. I like it. And if I do it again, I even put random light boxes down here. I need to fine-tune that little end delay there. I did that delay with a delayed switch on, which I delayed after 2 seconds after this trigger. Unfortunately, it's 2 seconds or 1 second. It doesn't give you much of a fine-tuning there. And then there's a delayed switch off. So I could set this to, say, 10 seconds, and it would play that last note for 10 seconds. And because it's last in the list of tunes to play, I don't need the logic. That's why there's a gap of no logic there. But I do need the logic here to say if it gets one bit of power, it's on. But the delayed switch is off. As you can see, the red light's on. And as you turn this, if you turn this off, you can see that light goes off. And that light's on, because it's getting power from the pylon. But it hasn't been triggered yet. If we turn this on, you'll see each one of these green lights individually coming on as it runs through the logic. Not as it runs through the delay. The delays are there, but they're not there to cause. What I could do, for example, is make this one come on after 1 second, this one come after, say, 3 seconds, this one come after 5 seconds. By the time you get to the end of your tune, you'll be setting your delay for like 30 seconds or something like that. All of these have exactly the same delay apart from the end one. That way I could change the notes. And there's a footnote. You don't necessarily have to connect a computer to a speaker to change its tone. You can just go up and activate it, and it goes up one note at a time, ultimately going through 2 octaves, I think. Anyway, one more time. Waiting for that last bit. Yeah, okay. Interesting use of logic gates. It's not something I think I'll use in at any point. But what I actually wanted to do was create a kind of counter. And that's what's happened here. Or even though it's plain music, it's there's an audible indication of what's going on. I could just as easily have built like a series of numbers here out of these light boxes, especially the smaller ones, and have a score board. That was where I was kind of going with this, and I just wanted to test the idea that would work. Tick up. There are powered pylons that will actually turn on and off at regular intervals, which may be part of what I'm trying to do. But for now, you play a little tune using logic gates in Fallout 4's build editor. I hope this has been of interest to you. Leave a comment if you hated it, and you know, and all that. Leave a comment if you liked it, and if you're indifferent, just move on to the next video. All right, this is Vinny Voodoo. Have fun and experiment with the build editor. I'll talk to you soon.